So I just want to say welcome and thank you to everyone who volunteered to participate in the NUMICS Programs Project Advisory Committee. This is the NUMICS PAC meeting 2B. Think of it as a continuation of our last meeting. During this presentation, as I mentioned, we'll go through introductions, quickly as a refresher, and we'll also take attendance. I'll provide an opportunity for those on the phone to identify themselves at a later time so that we can record everyone's attendance. And as mentioned, when everyone signed on, this meeting is being recorded. So if you choose to turn on your camera, we'll consider that as your consent for using your likeness in this recording. I want to ask that you please mute yourself and remain muted upon arrival, and remain muted until the conversational portion of the presentation begins, and I'll alert you to those portions. And as mentioned, we are using the Zoom for these meetings. Zoom has many features that you are able to use. These features are within the reactions pane. You can raise your hand for any questions, and for times where I'll ask you for your interactions as well. There's also a chat function where you can insert your comments via text at any time of this meeting. And then I also want to say there will be polls, additional to the polls that is launched right now, that will periodically come up as well. And those polls are important for your participation as well. Okay. Moving forward, here's a brief look at our agenda. Just wanted to say welcome back. We'll go through our PAC Meeting 2 review. That's when we went over our analysis needs and efficiency report. We'll move forward with a gaining PAC perspective portion, and that's where we will be using those comment cards that you filled out. And I just want to mention that if you have not filled out your comment card yet, there's still opportunity to fill out and provide your input. Just don't do it right now because I want everyone to be present and engaged in this presentation, but you can send it back to me either after the meeting or by the end of the day tomorrow for that, so that we can incorporate it into our next process. After we go through our gaining PAC perspective, we will do an introduction to our PAL study goals and objectives, and then also present our preliminary purpose and need statement, and also provide background on what a purpose and need statement is. And then finally, we will go through our next steps. And I just want to highlight again the NUMICS leadership team. I will provide the opportunity for them to introduce themselves very briefly, just to put a face to the name. And we will start with Neil.
Good morning, Neil Patel, Principal Engineer, DOT.
Good morning, everyone. Scott Roberts, Project Manager, DOT.
Good morning. I'm John Dean. I am the project engineer for Connecticut DOT.
Jake Argiro is not going to be with us today, but I am David Schweitzer. I'm the Deputy Project Manager.
And I'm Chris Fagan. I'm the project engineer for HNTB. Good morning.
Thank you. And as you know, I'm Naomi. I've been the person hounding you with emails and trying to get you all involved in this, so thank you. As presented at our first meeting and our last meeting, these are the organizations who have been invited to be part of our NUMICS PAC. Those of us who are joining from telephone, if you could briefly introduce yourselves, I will just go through and I'll go by phone number so I can, so that not everyone talks at the same time. I see a 203 757 number.
Oh, yes, that's me, Martin Spring, president of the Waterville Community Club.
Hi, Martin. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
And I don't see anyone else, so that's great. And we can move forward. And then I also just want to mention all other returning PAC members and PAC members who do have access to these Zoom functions, just to please insert your names and affiliations into the chat box function. And also for those who have not filled out the scheduling poll, if you could do so. I'll leave it up for a couple more slides, but then I'll end the poll before we move on. And just to give a little background, since our last meeting, you have been identifying those transportation-related goals and objectives on that input map. You have also been checking your email for information about the NUMIX program. And then on the flip side, we have been obtaining input from PAC members, stakeholders, and the public. And then we have also been taking that information and refining our purpose and needs, our preliminary purpose and needs statement and transportation-related goals and objectives. And to just give a quick refresher, the analysis needs and deficiency report is what was presented at our last meeting. This report summarizes the details and results of various studies which have been performed as part of the Connecticut Department of Transportation planning process for the NUMIX program. These studies that are summarized in this report consist of data collection efforts and engineering analysis for transportation context, in context or environmental features within the study area. These studies have collectively been performed to identify the existing transportation network deficiencies and to predict its future deficiencies. I'd like to note that the content of this analysis needs and deficiency report is primarily intended to guide the development of our conceptual improvements. This report will also serve as a source of information to develop the program's preliminary purpose and needs statement as part of our planning and environmental linkages study. The preliminary purpose and needs statement will also be used to inform our subsequent National Environmental Policy, or NEPA, process that the Connecticut DOT will follow after the completion of our study. This familiar figure on the screen depicts the anticipated steps in the full TEL process. As you can see, there are several steps that have been identified, that we have identified to make sure that the study is successful. That includes identifying the purpose of the study and its desired outcomes, identifying the purpose and need and transportation-related goals and objectives, and then it goes on to the analysis, development, and the screening of alternatives and the documentation of the TEL. Just want to mention that we do plan on engaging the public and stakeholders and agencies throughout the study. As you can see, we are here in the development of the purpose and need and transportation-related goals and objectives. At the last meeting, we presented and reviewed the existing conditions and anticipated future conditions, identifying the needs and deficiencies that are out there in Waterbury. We've also identified key community and environmental features that are important to Waterbury and the surrounding area and region. When we develop our preliminary purpose and needs statement, we take all of those conditions into consideration, including your feedback, to formulate this purpose and needs. The program team has drafted a preliminary purpose and needs statement, which we will present to you later at this meeting. And now we are at the Gating PAC perspective portion. I just want to note that I will end the poll at this moment. Everyone, as these polls will come up, and we'll move forward. Objectives of today's workshop. So we are conducting today's workshop to better understand the perspectives of members of the PAC and the constituents that the members represent. We want to identify the existing needs and deficiencies. We want to confirm the local issues and potential program priorities. And then we also want to provide context that will inform the continued development of the program's preliminary purpose and needs statement. Ahead of today's meeting, I emailed this comment card exercise, and this was sent out to help develop with today's discussion, as well as to gain that PAC perspective. I appreciate everyone who filled out this comment card, and as I mentioned before, there's still time to fill out these cards. If you could not do it now, but if you can email them back to me before the end of the day tomorrow, Thursday, January 26th, these comments can be incorporated into our next steps. And just to give you all some perspective on why we sent out these common exercise cards. I just want to read through these prompts. So from my perspective, the most pressing needs and deficiencies within the I-84 and Route 8 interchange Waterbury are. We asked this prompt to help define the most pressing needs, transportation needs and deficiencies in the mind of PAC members, to identifying, what's really important to you all and the constituents that you all represent. The next prompt, in my opinion, the New Mix program would be successful if it achieved the following. We developed this prompt to help better define any other transportation-related goals and objectives that PAC members and other members of the community may have that we, may not have been able to identify just through our engineering analysis. And then this final prompt lists 3 destinations and/or landmarks that positively or negatively define Waterbury to you. This prompt was developed to better understand and also to confirm what broad aspects define Waterbury. This can help the program team identify potential enhancements, such as improved access, view sheds, and connectivity. I wanted to pause here and give anyone the opportunity to raise their hand using the raise hand function to add any input if they had, any additional destinations or landmarks, or, potential goals and objectives that they would like to discuss now or had any questions. I'll pause here for a minute or two. Okay.
I had a quick question. This is Eric from Housatonic Valley Association. With this comment exercise, you're saying that the next meeting we'll discuss what the PAC members have all put down on this. We'll go over like a summary of it.
So the next PAC meeting, so we'll get in a little bit more detail as we progress into this presentation, where we will, identify those needs and deficiencies. I'll ask for your input. All of these comment cards were taken into consideration as we developed our preliminary purpose and needs statement, and we have identified, these transportation-related goals and objectives and program purpose and needs within the presentation. So we will get to this. We're not going to go through each and every card together, but this information will be disseminated with, to everyone at a later date. There just isn't enough time, unfortunately, to go through each card.
Yeah, understandable. I guess just to make sure I understood, so we will get a synthesis of what the PAC members said on this card?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just moving forward here, we're going to start with the New Mix Health Study, goals, objectives, and preliminary purpose and needs statement. This is where we really, sharpen our pencils and try to figure out, the purpose of our program. On your screen is a familiar Connecticut DOT visioning statement for the health study. This was created to help guide the program team and partners. I will read the visioning statement, which is the Connecticut Department of Transportation desires to establish a vision or master plan for the interchange that is articulated in a prioritized plan for the phased implementation of improvements. The overarching goal of this health study is to develop a clear and supported plan of action for addressing deficiencies at the I-84 and Route 8 interchange and study area. In order to develop the plan, we formulate a purpose and needs statement. For the Pell, we will be developing a preliminary purpose and needs statement, and that will function as the crux of our Pell study and alternative screening process. And so one may ask, what is the purpose and need? The The purpose and need statement is essentially the foundation of NEPA and the decision-making process. The purpose and need statement is typically associated with the NEPA process. And just to give some background, the NEPA process requires that federally sponsored projects develop a concise and well-defined statement of why the project is being proposed and what underlying transportation issues and deficiencies need to be addressed. The purpose and need statement is one of the most important sections of the environmental document, and as I mentioned, it establishes a basis for the range of reasonable alternatives to be evaluated in the environmental document. The purpose and need is key to establish a basis for development of the range of reasonable alternatives required for a NEPA evaluation, and assists with the identification of an eventual selection of a preferred alternative. We've mentioned this before. PEL we're considering it to be pre-NEPA. We are in the early conceptual planning phase, and so while PEL is pre-NEPA, we are using NEPA-like terminology. A thoughtful purpose and need developed during a PEL study will increase development of the PEL study information in NEPA, and it will also help focus the PEL study in the same way that the purpose and need is foundational in the NEPA process. The preliminary purpose and need statement that we are workshopping today will become the crux of our PEL study screening process. So the purpose and need, or a purpose and need statement, has three parts. One, the first part would be the purpose. It states why the program is being proposed. Two, the needs. The needs identify the major transportation deficiencies. And then three, program goals and objectives. These identifies the goals and objectives intended to be met through the implementation of the program. And so now we'll start with number one, the purpose. As mentioned, the purpose states why the program is being proposed. The program team identifies our program purpose, why our program is being proposed. The program is being proposed to correct the existing I-84 and Route 8 interchange deficiencies. These deficiencies include structural, geometric, and operational deficiencies. The program purpose notes we also want to achieve acceptable levels that meet current and future traffic needs. And now we'll move on to needs. The needs identifies the major transportation deficiencies. The project needs also include factual and quantifiable data needed to back up those identified deficiencies. The NUMIX PAC identified issues and needs. These are the NUMIX PAC problems and needs that were identified at our previous meeting. On your screen, you can see how the titles mirror the existing condition categories we previously presented at PAC meeting 2. We utilize these notes in addition to the information gained from our analysis to develop our purpose and need statement. We also use those comment cards to confirm, those needs that were identified and to potentially see if there are any new needs that were identified. You can also see on the map, on this image, how each of these posted cards has a corresponding number associated with it. These numbers you can see line up with either a need or a goal and objective. The needs or these issues that have been identified by PAC members can also be identified as a potential need or a goal and objective and potentially incorporated into our program. So to gain some more of this PAC perspective, we wanted to pull up a poll for PAC identified needs. This interaction portion of presentation, we want to gain further understanding on the transportation needs that you have identified during the study so far. these prompts have been identified and developed to identify and summarize the collective experience from those who live, work, or commute within and through Waterbury. As these poll prompts come up, we would like for you to rate each prompt on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being strongly agree. And as we go through each prompt, we will ask that you try to think back to before the rehabilitation project, where there was a large construction presence was on the highway. This is important because we need to capture the transportation system needs to be corrected for the future of the I-84 and Route 8 interchange. For these prompts, we will review the results as they come in. And I just want to note that I may ask you to lend your perspective. So if you feel particularly passionate about any of these themes, feel free to raise your hand while using the reaction pane, and we can discuss more. I also don't want to put anyone on the spot, so if you don't feel comfortable unmuting yourself, you can always put your comments and perspectives in the chat for the program team to review and discuss. And that is also a great way to lend your input. So I'm going to hand things over to my colleague, Chris Fagan, where he will go through these prompts and discuss these perspectives.
Thanks, Naomi. So I have the honor of reading the questions for everybody. So question number 1, first out of 7. I routinely change my travel patterns / commuting behavior in order to avoid traffic congestion on the Mixmaster. Again, we're going from 1 being strongly disagree to 5 strongly agree. Naomi, I don't think this is one that we actually heard any feedback on specifically. Is it?
That is correct. We haven't actually heard much about people, changing their daily commute. However, we have heard some perspectives about how people, sometimes have used the local roadway to, access other destinations, and then have also experienced, congestion on the local roadway as well. So I'm showing about 77% participated. It's actually looking like quite a mixed bag. Not many, most people are either neutral or do agree. It seems that, most people, they're not, the congestion that is occurring is not significantly, changing their travel behavior. Does anybody have perspectives on that, or any comments on that?
Hi, I do.
Yeah.
I actually do talk to a lot of colleagues throughout the day, and that is one of the main topics. And I think I've suggested that to you on a number of occasions in some of your polling. So yes, I personally do. And I know quite a few do as well.
Great. So I'm actually going to end the poll and then share these results with you all. You can scroll through and you can sort of see, how people are responding. There's a strongly disagree, we have a disagree, and neutral. So the majority of people, it doesn't seem like they are routinely changing their travel patterns, but doesn't mean that they aren't. So that's definitely something that we are taking into consideration. And thank you, Ms. Villikus, for providing that perspective as well.
Stephanie, if I could clarify, Stephanie, the change travel pattern that you and your colleagues that you're engaging in? Is that the going past the exit that you'd want to get off of to get to exit 18 to safely access post-university?
So I'm at St. Mary's and it's a matter of getting to the hospital. So yes, that and getting off, it's colleagues coming from 8 North, avoiding the mixed master because they can't really get off to get to St. Mary's without going past it, or just getting off at Riverside Drive and going through the city. And then it's the ones coming from 8 South having to be rerouted to get off. So that's just what I've heard.
No, excellent. Thank you so much for the specifics. All right, so question number 2. I routinely use the Mixmaster to travel across Waterbury.
As these questions begin to filter in, we developed this prompt to sort of identify and hope to identify, how people are using the Mixmaster. In our analysis, we found that a large percentage of people were using the Mixmaster and not the local roadway in order to get across Waterbury, because it seems like, that local roadway network may not be as beneficial to people traveling within Waterbury to use, and therefore they're using the Mixmaster in order to travel within Waterbury. And as these answers come in, it seems that your perspective is very agreeable. It's heavy on the strongly agree and agree, no strongly disagree, and I got 1 disagree. So. To move forward and the answers.
No, if I may, Naomi, if I may, actually, 1 and 2, I think the time of day is a big factor.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. In our past presentation, we identified, those AM and PM peak travel times where the number of cars on the road or number of vehicles on the road is increased, and therefore, that adds a lot of traffic congestion within the area.
Arthur, what has your experience been with number 2? When are most people using the Mixmaster to travel across Waterbury instead of the local roads?
I find it a big convenient way to get across town.
Mm-hmm.
Even when traffic is a little heavier, but I use it constantly. I don't know, maybe it's a habit.
Okay.
But as I said, during working hours, when they get released from work or sometimes school, traffic does play a big part.
Thank you.
All right. Question number 3. I believe the local roadway network of Waterbury is difficult to navigate and prefer to use the Mixmaster to travel between destinations.
This is where we're getting upon what you touched upon, Arthur, with it just being, more convenient to take the Mixmaster to get to where you're going. Mixmaster has become, the preference for many to travel between destinations.
And Naomi, this is Neil. I think you have it on your post-it there on your screen, but just to remind everyone, right, we want to try and think back before the rehab project that's currently going on. You want to think about your travel patterns before this rehab project started.
Yes, absolutely. And here, as we're getting these responses, again, it's heavy on the agree, strongly agree. A couple of neutrals in here, and even a few disagree. If anybody had any perspective they wanted to gain or, provide, that would be great. Or we can move on to the next.
This is Bob Nerney speaking. I would say that the if you're traveling east-west, west-east, the mixed master is the preferred route, because certainly the local roads are going to be equal or perhaps more congested depending on the time of day. But there are other areas of the city, including major retail area, Wolcott Street, which does not involve east-west movement. That's, you're traveling in a northerly direction. You have to get off of the mixed master. It's really not an option to use the road. So the connectivity is really sort of drives the decision making. Chase Avenue, another area, you may partially use the 84, but the bulk of your travel is going to be through city roads.
Yeah, thank you.
Question number 4. I believe the Mixmaster acts as a barrier to bicycle and pedestrian travel across Waterbury.
This is something that we've heard from many people and also that we have identified, in our analysis needs and efficiency report, connecting neighborhoods, connecting Waterbury around the mixed master has been identified as the needs from many or several PAC members from the comment cards that we've received and also from other discussions that we've had with stakeholders. I'm seeing a couple of disagree, one strongly disagree, many neutrals agree and strongly agree. The majority of people who have participated in this poll, strongly agree that the mixed master is acting as a barrier to the bike and pedestrian access and travel across Waterbury. I'm going to end this poll and share the results to see. So you all can peruse the results. There is a strongly disagree, a couple disagree. Does anyone want to, provide their perspective on those access points, or those strongly agree? Does anyone have any perspective that they want to add to that? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward.
Okay, question number 5. I believe the Mixmaster routinely feels unsafe to travel on.
The Mixmaster routinely feels unsafe to travel.
Okay, a lot of responses are filtering in. Pretty spread almost evenly between disagree, strongly agree, agree and neutral. Safety has been identified as a need. I'm going to end the results and also share them. Safety has been identified as, a need to perhaps correct those geometric and, operational deficiencies that are leading, this interchange to feel a little unsafe. A couple, disagrees and some neutrals, so things that, the mixed master itself may not feel unsafe for many of the people who are participating on this call, which is interesting.
I'm curious, is there anybody who routinely uses the Mixmaster for traveling across the city and prefer to use it in lieu of the local roadway network, but still feels regularly unsafe while traveling on it? You use it even though it's convenient, but you still wish it were feeling a little bit more safe?
Hi, this is Tomas. I just want to share that I do live in Waterbury. I live in Town Plot, and I usually use the Mixmaster. I guess the unsafest part of the Mixmaster is under the bridge where there's an exit. I believe towards Route 8, towards like Bridgeport. And there is people coming from downtown that exit, and they cut through traffic to take exit. I believe it's 15 or 16. I don't remember exactly which exit. But it's they cut basically 3 lines in order to make that exit. So and then people that are about to take exit Route 8 towards Torrington. Sometimes they create traffic because they try to cut through to make that exit as well. So it's basically that Route 8 part that's a little bit dangerous, and that's probably where the traffic is like heaviest, probably.
This is Bob again. I 100% agree with what was just said. Yeah, what happens is they're dual entry and exit lanes. So you got traffic weave occurring. There are those trying to get over to the right lane to go to Torrington, and those that are trying to get on over into the left lane to continue west on 84. So yeah, it's a very short distance to be able to get into your proper lane, and you're constantly looking behind you to see if other people are trying to get into your lane. A couple of other observations. I think the eastbound travel is not as bad as the westbound, which of course is the lower deck. It tends to be kind of dark, feels kind of sort of a contained area. If you ever study driving habits, you'll notice that particularly out-of-state drivers invariably slow down. And while the locals are, speeding through, so you have that kind of scenario going on. And lighting, as I mentioned, in the evening tends to be, I think it could be better illuminated. And one other final problem that I'm not sure there's a solution to it, but this time of the year in late fall, if you're heading westbound, coming out of the tunnel, you are hit with the brightest sunsets that are so blinding to people. Again, there's probably not a cure to that, but it would be interesting to look at, accident statistics on pertaining to that issue.
Thank you, and I appreciate both everyone's perspective. You all kind of jumped ahead a little bit of me, which is totally fine. Those entrance and exit ramps, they have been identified as, it's like a safety concern, as they are closely spaced. Some are coming from the left and others are coming from the right, and that creates, a weave and a lot of congestion in that area. So thank you for that perspective. Chris, if you want to read this last prompt, I will launch the poll.
Sure. So question 6, I believe the entrance and exit ramps on the Mixmaster feel unsafe.
Chris, in my perspective, two really are, to me, are rather unsafe. Is the one traveling north from Route 8, merging onto 84 and getting off, I believe, the Highland Avenue exit. What's that, 19 or 18? You have to cross over three lanes in order to merge extremely right. And the same thing coming from Route 8 south, merging onto the top of the bridge to get off to the next exit, going down to what would that be? Meadow Street. Again, crossing over the three lanes. It's those two are very, very. It's very difficult to maneuver, especially during heavy traffic. I know there's a sign there that says not to move over, but who believes in signs anymore?
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you, Arthur. And these poll results, show that basically everyone, identified this as a need. The ramps and those entrance and exit ramps, either onto the Mixmaster or off of the Mixmaster, are a safety concern. Needing to create that reef from both sides, causes some issues there and also causes some backup. So thank you. That area that you identified and talked about, that was also a comment on several of the comment exercise cards that we have received so far. So definitely a big issue in the eyes of those living and working in Waterbury. And I did say this was the last poll, but there's actually one last poll for this section.
Ooh. Okay. Yep, this one, number 7, last question. I believe the congestion on the Mixmaster is negatively impacting the local economy. Yeah, this is a tough one, Art.
This is one that we really wanted to, hear from you all and see, what you're experiencing, what your perspective is on this, especially, the business owners and other people who have those businesses right in downtown Waterbury area where those, where the local economy is, centralized.
This is a tough one to kind of figure out. You could technically say that people that are avoiding traffic and are driving through the city could potentially become people that are stopping by at a local store and buying a drink or buying food or something. Or you could just basically argue that people are just cutting through the city and speeding through the city and causing traffic. So it's a hard one to kind of say, it's just answer A or answer B.
Yeah, and I agree with that, Tomas. And it seems that most people who were able to respond to the poll, they're also in this middle area, disagree and neutral. Congestion in this area, we're not sure yet how it may be impacting the economy. But if there was any, let's see.
I think
Anecdotal evidence for that. We just wanted to hear your all perspectives on that. We don't believe that improving congestion would negatively impact the economy, but maybe, yeah, I just want to hear everyone's perspective.
if I might, it's gonna sound like a joke, but maybe the companies that are making the most money are the towing companies. with all the trucks getting stuck under that bridge. On what is it called? Forgot the name of the street, but the
I
street
think
that goes towards Home Depot.
it's Bank
Um,
Street over
That's
there.
Bank Street.
Yes, Bank
It's a
Street.
railroad. It's a railroad bridge. It happens.
And the other one on West Main
The other
Street
one.
on the other side of town.
Yep.
So that's the towing companies are probably pretty happy in Waterbury.
So are those trucks avoiding congestion at the moment, or are they rerouting right now because of the construction that's occurring? Do we know?
Are you talking about the Main Street Bridge? Is that causing the congestion, you're saying?
I believe the clearance underneath a bridge is too low, and there are trucks that try to, get underneath the bridge and get stuck because they don't fit. And,
Yeah, so that, what I think is, go ahead, I'm sorry.
We've had initially probably about a dozen different signs along that stretch of road there coming off the highway, off the way south. We have flashing signs, we have bridge signs, we have street marking signs. We have bridges on street signs on the wall, and as well as signs on the actual bridge itself. And I get to that. I'm there every time there's an accident, that bridge gets hit. And the first thing I asked the driver, I said, "What happened?" He just says, "No, follow my GPS," because it's exactly what it is. But it does not cause a problem on the highways itself or congestion, because there's so many avenues and so many ways around to get out of that where that truck is. So it's an unfortunate thing that happens, but it really doesn't hamper traffic a lot in the area when it does happen, because there's too many routes away from that to get away from that. Is it still going to happen? Absolutely. Until something is done with that bridge, either it's got to be raised, as they talk about, or the road's got to be cut under, and it's only like about a 4 or 5 inch problem there. But as far as congestion on highways, it hasn't.
All right. Well, thank you, and we'll definitely take that into consideration, seeing how that could affect our program or potential solutions. That was the last of our polls. So I'm going to move forward.
This is Raj from Metro North. So since you talked about that Bank Street Bridge, that's get hit up almost now 2-3 times than before this current 84 project going on, because a lot of tractor trailers get stuck in it because it's a detour over there. And there are enough signs, but I don't know whether the truck routers have whatever route they go with, they tend to give them a same route, and if they're getting stuck. Right. So we had to all the time inspect our bridge when these get stuck and making sure the structural integrity is maintained for that bridge.
Raj, this is Kenny from the mayor's office. I've been working on this with you for the last couple of years. And like I said, as many signs as we put down there, it still gets hit at least, I think it had about 12 or 15 times last year, if I remember correctly. Am I right there?
Yeah. All right. Thank you. We're just going to move forward. So talking about these program needs, what are the needs that have been identified for the I-84 Mixed Master Interchange? We've gone through these at our last meeting, but these identified needs also relate to all the needs that we have identified so far through our PAC perspective, those polls that we've gone through, and then also supported by the data and engineering that we collected over the past few years. So we've identified structural deficiencies, including structurally deficient bridges and fracture critical bridges. We've identified geometric deficiencies along the highway and those system and service ramps, resulting in reduced speeds, and those traffic and operational deficiencies, that left-hand entrance and exits the inadequate merging, inadequate interchange spaces. These are all things that you all have identified and support and agree with as, you know, a need and concern. And we've also, you know, identified how those geometric and operational deficiencies contribute to that substantially higher crash rate that this interchange experiences when we compare that number to the average state crash rate for all roads per million days, daily vehicles, miles per traveled. So those are the needs. And then finally, we'll go through the program goals and objectives. And again, identifies the goals and objectives intended to be met as a result of the program in addressing those transportation needs. The image on your screen is the screenshot of that PAC comment mapper, where many of you added those various comments and questions throughout the study area, highlighting the needs, potential goals and objectives, or even potential opportunities for incorporation into the study for evaluation or mitigation. I'll spend some time here to discuss, you know, some of the items that were input into the comment mapper. I do want to note that I'm not going to go over all of these, but every comment is a great comment. Responses will be developed and included in the report of meeting for this meeting when it is published. We have gone through every single comment the program team has, and we were able to identify, you know, comments that were needs, a goal and objective, or an opportunity. And these are just what we were able to identify as either a need or a goal and objective. And just to highlight a few comments here that we received, needs to reconnect neighborhoods divided and separated by the interchange. This person asked that, or suggests that there could be, you know, a focus on the Naugatuck River Greenway Trail, connecting and reconnecting neighborhoods divided and separated by the interchange has been, you know, identified as a need. Understanding, you know, those local programs and projects that are happening is also included in our program. Understanding, you know, the Naugatuck River Greenway Trail goes through this area and up north around the interchange. Another comment we received was about freshwater mussels in Connecticut. Those are a species of concern and are located north of Field Brook. This person suggests that stormwater improvements could push their habitat south. While this is not, you know, a goal or objective, this can be identified as an opportunity for potential mitigation or evaluation on how we can incorporate stormwater improvements in the program. And then a third comment we received is about, you know, Riverside Cemetery. This is on the National Register of Historic Places. It's right next to the interchange. Noise and vibration from the interchange exists. And this person just identifies that, hey, maybe Route 8 could be moved east of the river. This is not a need or a goal objective, but this is could be understood as a potential solution to some of the issues that this person identifies as a concern for the Riverside Cemetery. Understanding the importance of these environmental aspects, such as the Riverside Cemetery or the freshwater mussels or the stormwater outfalls that exist on and around the McMaster interchange, is incredibly important and vital to the success of the future of this program. Till now, we haven't really discussed that, but I just want to, you know, address, like, someone may ask where those environmental portions fit into this process. And on this next slide, I'll just go through that. So where do those environmental impacts fall into the program? We showed you these terms before. There's NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, and SEPA, Connecticut Environmental Policy Act. These are both federal and state respective policies that require state agencies and federal agencies to evaluate potential impacts to the surrounding environment during the planning process of projects. Agencies will examine potential impacts to the environment, whether it be socioeconomic or natural resource impacts. And then through that NEPA and ZEBRA process, Connecticut DOT will consider and assess the significance of those potential impacts of the proposed activities on the environment. Coordination and communication and engagement with members of the community and public occurs throughout all phases of the evaluation. I just want to highlight again, Pell is pre-NEPA, so we are, performing all this before all this occurs that where we are right now is pre-NEPA, so it occurs before this environmental process happens. But I'd like to note that we are not, pushing that environmental evaluation aside. The purpose and need statement, I'd like to note, should focus on the underlying reasons for proposing the transportation project. And typically those reasons are based on meeting a transportation need, considerations that relate to the manner in which this project is carried out, such as minimizing environmental impacts, should be distinct from the purpose and need statement. But I'd just like to highlight that it is included in the environment evaluation. We will be looking at ways to minimizing environmental impacts, and we'll talk more about that at a later point in the presentation, or later in our PAC meetings. We won't discuss them at this presentation. This is our PAC identified goals and objectives. I did want to identify and point out that we are nearing the end of our allotted time. It was originally scheduled for a 1-hour meeting, and it's about to be noon now. I did want to just highlight that there are, a couple more slides to go through. I want to make sure that, I give the opportunity for other people to participate and provide their perspective. We've been getting really great feedback from PAC members. So for those of you who must leave, I want to just thank you for your participation. There are just a few more slides to go ahead before we end and present that purpose and need statement, but I just wanted to pause here just to say that. And then we'll go into this next poll section. So this portion is another interactive portion of the presentation. These prompts, they were developed to gain further understanding of the level of importance to the transportation-related goals and objectives that have been identified through the identification of the transportation needs. We would like for you to go through each prompt and rate on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being not important and 5 being very important. And we will review the results in a similar manner in which we did before. So as the polling results come in, I will ask for you to lend your perspective. If you feel, particularly passionate about any one of these items, feel free to, raise your hand, send in a comment, or in the chat, and we'll discuss a little further. And I'm going to now hand it over to my colleague Chris to go through these prompts for the poll.
Thanks again, Naomi. And again, for anyone who does have to jump, we will have this video recording posted to the website and on YouTube in case you're interested in the opinions of other people on the PAC. So let's get into the opinion part. Question number 1, how important is it that the new mix program reduces congestion on the highway, being I-84 and Route 8?
I'd be surprised if there were, some ones here, some not important at all perspectives, but if there are any, feel free to chime in. We're not really ranking any of these. These are all independently, rated for each of these prompts. So.
Chris, Naomi, if I could just add one thing here too. If somebody does have to leave and they want to finish up, any of these to provide input, they can certainly contact any of us, and, you know, we can get their feedback, so they don't have to feel like they missed out on anything.
Thank you. I'm going to end the poll and share these results, and they are very much so on the somewhat important and very important, you know, side of their opinions. Okay.
Okay, so question number 2, how important is it that the new mix program improves the associated local roadway network?
And again, this is, you know, building upon a lot of those needs that were identified through our analysis, and also with those common exercise cards that were used with, you know, people identifying that it's hard to use, you know, that local roadway network, or they prefer to use, you know, the mix master to travel across Waterbury. Improvements to the local roadway network could, you know, reduce congestion or the number of vehicles that use the highway and the interchange system to travel between towns or between destinations. And I ended the poll, and I will share these results. And again, you know, very heavy on that somewhat important and very important level of opinion.
All right, question number 3. How important is it that the new mix program improves connections between the highway and businesses and employers?
Quick question. Could you elaborate on businesses and employers? Could we look at this as community residents as opposed to just employers?
Absolutely, yes, Eric.
Thank you.
Community, you know, it could be other, you know, open space, parks, you know, just improving those connections between the highway and those destinations, improving that connectivity. And I ended the poll, and I will share those results. And again, you know, some neutral, but heavy on the somewhat important and very important. We understand that, you know, either we improve those connections between the highway, you know, those business and other open space and community destinations as well.
Okay, question number 4. How important is it that the new mix program improves neighborhood connectivity through improvements to the bicycle or pedestrian connections near the highway?
So as these answers are filtering in, I'd like to highlight again the separation or dividedness that the mix master, the interchange system, provides or inflicts onto Waterbury has been identified, you know, by many people in those comment cards. We're thinking that improving those connectivities with the improvements to the bicycle pedestrian pathways may, you know, increase that neighborhood connectivity, not to make Waterbury not feel as divided into quadrants by that mix master interchange. I'm going to end this poll and share these results because This one is a little bit spread out with, a handful of people between neutral and, somewhat not important. Just to gain some more perspective on that, do people feel that improvements to those sidewalks or bike pathways going to be valuable to connect the neighborhoods, or what is that perspective? So, yeah. I guess we don't really have a lot of walkers and bikers on the phone call, maybe.
I'm sorry, Naomi, can you repeat the question?
My question was, for those who feel that, improvements to the neighborhood connectivity through improvements to the bike or pedestrian connections are, somewhat not important, or, neutral as a goal and objective for the New Mix program. It's not, your level of agreement with the statement or importance. A few people selected somewhat not important and neutral, and just wanted to gain that perspective.
Okay, gotcha.
In the interest of time, I'm going to move forward with our last question.
Okay. I think this is the final one. Last question, number 5. How important is it that the new mix program reduces the potential for crashes?
Okay. And again, safety has been a recurring theme in the feedback that we get from our stakeholders and PAC members. So identifying this as a goal and objective, and from the responses I'm getting, it's very highly supported as a goal and objective for the New Mix program. I will share these results. They were on the somewhat important and very important side, and understandably. Okay, moving forward. The transportation-related goals and objectives, we've identified goals and objectives intended to be met as a result of our program, and those have been identified as enhancing safety, maintain critical system linkages, improving system performance, reducing congestion, and facilitating connectivity with downtown Waterbury through the local road network, including accommodating and enhancing multimodal travel. And I just wanted to pause here to gain some more PAC member perspective on other, transportation-related goals and objectives that you may have that may not fit into the purpose of the statement, but we could incorporate it into our analysis as we continue and create our screening criteria. Okay, well, it seems like we've incorporated every transportation-related goal and objective, which is, quite incredible, but that's great. So just I'm going to move forward. And so we've identified our program's purpose, we've identified the needs with the data to support it. And then we've also identified the transportation-related goals and objectives. And so now we're able to formulate our purpose and needs statement. And before I show you the statement, which you all did receive in our PDF file of the presentation, but the statement, you know, as I said before, it's broad enough to allow for flexibility when we're finding and developing solutions for the interchange. The NUMICS program is a very, very large endeavor, and so this purpose and needs statement needs to be concise and specific enough, but also flexible enough in order to, you know, be able to find solutions that are reasonable. And so I will show the purpose statement and read through it. The purpose of the NUMICS program is to correct the existing structural, geometric, and operational deficiencies of the I-84 and Route 8 interchange. These corrections are expected to improve system performance, reduce congestion, enhance safety, maintain critical system linkages in Connecticut and the Northeast, and facilitate connectivity with downtown Waterbury through the local road network, including accommodating and enhancing multimodal travel. And I'm going to pause here very quickly and post another poll just to gain a sense of your level of agreement with our preliminary purpose and needs statement. What is your general feeling surrounding this draft? Yeah. If there's any perspective you can gain or we can gain. Pause here a couple more seconds, give some more people some time to provide their perspective. This does seem to be heavy on the agree and strongly agree side. I do see a disagree. So if the person who provided their disagree, if you don't mind either sharing in the chat, you know, where you think where that, you know, disagreement is. I would love to hear that perspective so that we can make sure we can incorporate, you know, those comments into the study and the program.
Hi, my name is Kevin Zach. I'm just a little bit confused that there's no mention of the environmental externality that this Mixmaster provides to the Naugatuck River system, and it just seems to be left off the table. If this is your mission statement, there should be at least a mention, in my opinion.
No, that was a great question, Kevin. And I just wanted to highlight, you know, again, this purpose and need, this preliminary purpose and need statement is to focus on the transportation needs and deficiencies and find solutions to those deficiencies. The environmental evaluation is not left off the table. It is incorporated into the program, not only during the Pell study, but it will be incorporated later on in the program when the Pell recommendations are moved into the NEPA and SEPA process. The Pell study does incorporate the evaluation of environmental impacts, and we have identified environmental, how do I say? We have incorporated the analysis and the minimization of environmental impacts into our screening evaluation. It's just not within the purpose and need for the program, the transportation program.
So what confuses me when you say the purpose of the quote unquote new mix program. But what you're telling me that this is just like a subset of the program that you're referencing in this mission statement. In other words, you reference the purpose is to correct the existing structural, geometric, and operational deficiencies of the I-84 and Route 8 interchange. Within that, it's just my instinct that says what I'm reading here. Either if it's a subset, I understand what you're saying. If this is the goal, there should be, in my opinion, existing structural, geometric and operational deficiencies, and polluting the pollution effects of the mix master is going to be corrected somewhere. It just seems like this is all structural. And I understand you're including it in some study amongst this, but as a total program, the quote unquote new mix program, or I'm I could be just not understanding. That's all.
No, you have a great understanding of this purpose and need statement, and the program does fall under the the NEPA and SEPA evaluation, which is the Environmental Policy Act. So we are, even though that this purpose and need statement is focusing on those transportation needs, and therefore we must make sure that those transportation needs are distinct of those environmental and other mitigating or potential opportunities to mitigate when we incorporate into our program. But I want to say that the PAL study and all the other studies that we are doing is federally sponsored and federally recognized process, and therefore it incorporates through the nature of the program that we are identifying, evaluating, and identifying areas of mitigation for the program. So the purpose of the statement is for that engineering-based evaluation, but it's not. Even though it does not explicitly say environment, the environment and those evaluations are included in the program. Stormwater improvements or any other type of environmental improvement does not really. Those can be incorporated on any alternative that would potentially get selected. So minimizing those environmental impacts, as you say, that can be incorporated across the board. However, addressing those structural, geometric, and operational deficiencies, those are very specific. And if an alternative does not satisfy this purpose and needs, that means that it's not fixing those problems, and therefore it's not valid. But environmental is part of all of the alternatives.
Is this mission statement going to be? Is this mission statement going to be revised to include that? Because how is that different than fixing in the structure? I still don't understand why it's excluded in the mission statement.
So this is Neil Patel, DOT. So I think, this is a good discussion. Part of the reason why we have the PAC.
Listen,
we want the input.
Can I interject just for a second? I know for the interest of time that we could talk about this at another time. I just didn't want it. I just saw it missing there. It's 20 minutes and a lot of people, I don't want to occupy everybody's time here. So please do not misunderstand my question here. I'm more than happy to bring it up at another time, at another meeting.
And I'll be pretty short. I think it's a good comment. It's something that maybe our group will go back and talk about in terms of the goals and objectives, because that's really what the purpose of this entire meeting is for. And so it's good input for us to kind of take a look at those goals and objectives. And real quick, I think Naomi, you had mentioned this is a preliminary purpose and need, and it can get revised as we go through the process.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I've had my hand raised. I'm not sure if it's been noted.
Yeah.
I can't see it on my end. I just wanted to echo what Kevin's saying, but and in terms of this broad statement that we're talking about, I'm wondering if like everything, water related, habitat corridor related, very important. I'm wondering if we're considering at all changing some of the words or adding to the statement, we could think about public health or community health, sort of those bigger arching things, because not just water in the river, which is extremely important, but light pollution, sound pollution, those things that affect the quality of life for people in the city can be incorporated if you were to add, say, the environment into, or public health into the statement.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. And so I'll echo what Neil said. This is not the final purpose and need statement or purpose statement here. It can be revised and adjusted. It cannot be. It's made to be flexible when we're finding in developing our solutions. And so we'll take a look at this. I want to also mention that we will identify, those other transportation-related goals and objectives, which do incorporate, those environmental concerns that are noise, sound, and other, impacts, public health impacts as well in our evaluation. The process of this PAC, we've sort of broken all these items down, and you can't really see everything as a whole, because we're sort of piecemealing this so that we can have a productive discussion about it. But I do want to, again, highlight that, environmental is not separate, despite it not being in this purpose in this purpose statement, but it will be incorporated into our study and identified, and then also incorporated as we move forward with our study and the program itself.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to talk about this. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. And so as we wrap up here, the preliminary purpose need statement is a report. We will be making adjustments after this meeting, and then once those adjustments have been approved and viewed, we'll post it online for your viewing and review. The finalized preliminary purpose need statement will be presented at our next PAC meeting. We'll use that to inform our health study level 1 evaluation criteria. And then I just do want to highlight again that the preliminary purpose need statement report can be updated, as more information is obtained, as the program progresses. So it's not, set in stone. It's allowed to be flexible. It's allowed to, change as more information is gained and more feedback is garnered from the public and other stakeholders. So this is not the end all be all. And then here are our next steps. I just want to highlight our next meeting will take place next month. At this next meeting, we'll take your first look at the universe of alternatives. Those are the conceptual solutions that we've developed to potentially satisfy our purpose and need statement and our health study level 1 screening criteria. And then we'll also present to you that revised preliminary purpose and need statement, and also, provide some of that feedback in response to the perspective that we have gotten from you all. And then just to highlight, our next meeting is February 18th. Again, we'll be presenting that finalized purpose and need statement and our conceptual alternatives, and then our level 1 screening criteria. And then finally, just to wrap this up, just before the next meeting, we ask that you review the PAC Meeting 3 materials, continue to explore the program website, continue to check your email for information about the next PAC meeting and scheduling of that meeting. And then we ask that you just remain excited to participate in our next meeting, and we hope that you stay engaged with this process. And I'll stop here to gather any remaining questions and comments. We have gone a little long, about an hour and a half total. So I appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to provide their input and perspective. This meeting was really great, and everyone's perspective was valuable. So thank you. And if there are any remaining comments, feel free to chime in.
Naomi, those comments can also be emailed to you, can't they?
Yes, they can. Yes, absolutely. You don't have to, this is not the end all be all for your comment, your input, and your perspective. You can definitely email me. You all have my email and my contact information. You can send in those comment exercise cards if you haven't done so yet. And yeah, if you do want those comment exercise cards to be incorporated into these next couple of steps, just because this program is progressing, I ask that you send them to me before the end of the day tomorrow, so that I can incorporate them into the recorded meeting for this meeting, and also into the update of the preliminary purpose and needs statement report. Okay, and this is the end of the slideshow. So again, thank you all for bearing with us and spending this extra time with us. And I'm looking forward to our next meeting next month, and be on the lookout for those emails. Have a great rest of your week, and take care.
Thank you. Bye.